Okay, well, it looks like HDMI is going here. I don't want to try and get this guy out. Ah! Oh, connector flew out and hit my eye. What's up guys, Jack here with MTS, and this is the ZimaBoard, a low-power single-board computer that's full x86. And this guy is basically a Raspberry Pi on steroids. You have dual USB 3.0 ports, dual gigabit RJ45 ports running a Realtek NIC, which I have had no issues getting to work right out of the box in pfSense, Proxmox, Windows, Ubuntu, and FreeNAS, or TrueNAS scale. This thing also has dual SATA 6 gig per second ports on the back of it, as well as a power output for their little cable that they give you in the box. You can buy a Y splitter cable, which will split the power between two drives. I wish they would include that in the box, but they only include the single one in the box, but that's a minor complaint seeing as just how cool this guy is. This thing also has a PCIe 2.0x4 slot right here on the side. So if you need to add some extra networking, you want to add more gigabit ports, well, there you go. You want to add some 10 gig, well, there you go, dual Intel 10 gig on an X540 T2. Or you want to add more USB, aside from the two built-in, you need another controller. Well, just add more USB ports. Need faster networking that isn't done over PCIe? Well, it's full x86, it's gonna work with just about anything you plug into it, so you can use something like this little Asus 2.5 gig USB network adapter, and now you have 2.5 gig. This thing is seriously cool. Now, there are three models of the ZimaBoard available. There is the 216, the 432, and the 832, and those numbers do mean something. The first number, that 2, 4, or 8, is the amount of system memory. I have the 832 here, so I have 8 gigs of system memory, and that 16 or 32 denotes whether it has 16 or 32 gigs of eMMC storage built on. So this guy has 32 gigs of eMMC storage, which isn't the fastest thing, as eMMC is basically a soldered-on SD card, but it will get the job done in a pinch, and it can be super useful not having to load something like, a low-powered OS, not having to have a flash drive sticking out the side. Now, for the past few months, I've been really testing out the ZimaBoard to see what I can get it to do, and it's in a bit of an odd middle ground category. It's too powerful to be, well, just a Raspberry Pi alternative, but it's not powerful enough to do certain things like running pfSense. I tried running pfSense on this thing as it has 2 gigabit network ports, and I wasn't able to break 200 megs, and that was just a direct LAN to WAN request, so no firewall rules or anything crazy. And it couldn't handle that. But I had plenty of CPU headroom left while it was running my Home Assistant server, Unify controller, TP-Link Omada controller, Pi-hole. What else did I have it running? I had it running lighting control for my room. I've had this guy doing a number of things using Ubuntu and Docker, but there was so much performance left on the table that I figured I needed to find something new to get this guy to do to fully take advantage of it. And I think I have a project in mind. Now, a while back, Blackmagic Design released their Cloud Pod. And the Cloud Pod is basically a little puck device which has a 10 gig RJ45 port on it, 2 USB-C 10 gig ports for connecting external drives, and an HDMI output. Now, what it's designed to do is allow you to plug in USB drives and have them shared over the network. It's a basically bring your own storage, external storage, plug and play NAS. And I figured recreating it, but my own version of it, would be a great project to take advantage of the ZimaBoard. Now, I don't really care about some of the features that Blackmagic included with their Cloud Pod. I don't need 10 gig over RJ45. I'd like to use this to direct share USB drives for when I go to do an event or when I'm doing, big media production stuff. I'm generally using Network in a Box, and Network in a Box is gigabit, so I don't need anything 10 gig. I just want to be able to have all of my computers set up and me pulling files from the same drive without having to take that drive computer to computer. So for me, the gigabit ports will be plenty. The second thing I want it to do is I want it to run the Unify controller for Network in a Box. Right now, Network in a Box's Unify controller is ran just off of my laptop, which hasn't been a problem so far, as I generally have my laptop with me on any event that I'm doing, but being able to have everything for Network in a Box contained within the Network in a Box, I guess, ecosystem, if you will, would be really nice. Now, the HDMI port on the CloudPod is used to run Blackmagic's little viewer to show you what clients are connected, what speeds they're connected at, and what sectors of the drive are being accessed. Now, I don't really care about any of that. The ZimaBoard has a mini DisplayPort output capable of driving 4K 60 Hz no problem. I want to be able to use this port to drive a display, drive a projector, monitor, confidence monitor, whatever, for while I'm doing an event, and I want it to happen over the network. So we're going to also be running NDI on this guy as well. That's 3 goals: sharing storage over the network, being the UniFi controller, and being a monitor driver over the network. So let's see what we can do. Now, tying all of this together is going to be the software. The software is where this guy is really going to shine. Because this is x86, you have so much flexibility of what you can run on here. And I think for this project, we're going to be running Windows, specifically Windows 10 LTSC. Now, the LTSC versions of Windows are the long-term support editions of Windows, so they come stripped down. There's nothing crazy installed on them. There's no camera, calculator, anything like that that's bloating up our systems. It is basically just what Windows needs to function, which is great for such a low-power board like this. Not having anything running in the background, taking up our resources will be perfect. So with that being said, let's get into the computer and start the software installation. Now, for the software side of things, I've already prepared here a USB drive with Windows 10 LTSC. Now, I also have this folder here for add-ons, and the add-ons we're going to be running is TeamViewer for remote management or remote control of this guy. I got to be able to shut it down, things like that. I'm also going to be using RDP on this guy. We also need Java here for our UniFi controller, so we'll move that over as well. And I've had issues with using Windows's built-in auto logon stuff, whether that's going through registry edit, all that stuff to try and get that working. But there's a nice little applet here that'll set it all up for us, so we don't have to worry about any of that. So that's getting copied over as well. All right, now that we have our add-ons and our bootable USB, let's go ahead and get this guy fired up and start the installation process. All right, so I've gone ahead and plugged in our little ZimaBoard. We have mini DisplayPort HDMI, our bootable USB drive, and my keyboard and mouse. Now I'm going to go ahead and give this guy power, and let's see this guy fire up. We're going to go ahead and start pressing delete to get into the BIOS when that comes up. All right, we have our ZimaBoard logo, and we're in the BIOS. Everything's all configured correctly in here so far, but we want to come over to boot, make sure our boot options are correct. We want our USB disk to be at the top, USB 3 disk map. Perfect. All right, we're gonna go ahead and save changes and exit. And this should boot to our bootable USB. All right, and we have our Windows setup. Let's go ahead and hit next, install now. All right, and we want Windows 10 LTSC. We don't want the N version, we just want Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC evaluation. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and delete all of our partitions that we have. And now Windows is free to create its own partitions. Those were Windows partitions. I've already had this guy set up and tested, so we're just reinstalling for this video. And now we just have to wait and run through the Windows 10 installation process. Let's connect to a network. I don't have the internet. We're not going to sign in with a Microsoft account. I can't believe they want you to sign into a Microsoft account in the enterprise versions of Windows. No, we're using Active Directory in the enterprise. What the heck? Who's going to use this PC? Let's just call this admin. And we're not going to set up a password just yet. If you set up a password at the time of installation here, like if I just put in password, there's no way to get around setting up these security questions and all this BS. So I just say admin and no password, and I'll set up the password in Windows later. While it's going through the installation process, I figured we could take a look at the case that I plan on using to house all of this stuff. So I grabbed one of these Apache cases, the same type of case that Network in a Box is built in. I use these guys for cameras, for a ton of different things. I grabbed the smaller version. Now these cases have all this foam on the inside, but we're gonna basically be taking this out, mounting our little ZimaBoard in here, and for the external connections, I'm gonna be using these D-series panel mount connectors. So we have True 1, which is locking power. We also have an HDMI D-series connector, and RJ45. So I plan to put all those connections on the side of the box, as well as having some active ventilation. I'm gonna put a little fan in here, so that way this guy can stay nice and cool. But Windows seems to have finished its setup, so let's go through and get everything all, well, installed and set up the way we want it. The first thing I'm gonna do is reinsert our USB that we used for installation, and we're gonna grab Explorer, and grab our installation drive and our add-ons folder. Move this over to the desktop here, and let's get things installed. We're gonna first install our auto logon, but first we need to set up a password, so let's go into Windows here, Settings, Accounts, Sign-in Options, and Password. We're gonna add a password. Password is just password, and I've gone ahead and made the password hint pass space word because you can't put the password in the password hint, so there we go, we're cheating a little bit. Now that we have a password set up, let's go ahead and run our auto logon. So we're just gonna extract this guy here, auto logon 64, extract all, auto logon x64, yes, I agree, and our password is password. And we're gonna click on Setup. Auto logon has successfully completed. Now this computer should automatically log into this account when we reboot it. So let's go back to our add-ons folder here, and we're gonna install Java JRE here. Now this is gonna allow us to install our Unify controller because Unify is built on top of Java. Now while Java is doing its installation, we want to share any USB drive that gets connected to this little mini PC. Now I'm probably never gonna have more than one drive plugged in at a time, so I can go ahead and just share one drive letter. Now by default, Windows puts any new connected drive on drive letter D, and as long as drive letter D is available, it should use that. So we're just gonna come over to, because we already have our flash drive plugged in, shared under D, we're gonna actually share this flash drive. So Properties, Sharing, Advanced Sharing Options, share this folder, Permissions, Everyone, and I want them to have full read-write access. Apply, OK. Apply and OK, and close. And now anything that's mounted under D will be shared over the network. And Java should be done. It is done. Now let's go ahead and install our Unify controller. And Unify is done installing. I'm not gonna launch it just yet because I'm gonna import the controller file from my laptop's controller because that's already what's controlling Network in a Box. So last thing to install is TeamViewer. While TeamViewer is installing, we wanna set our Unify controller to run at startup. So we're gonna go into this PC, local disk, users, admin, and I'm just gonna enable the hidden items. So we want app data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, start menu, programs, startup. And we're just gonna drag our little Ubiquity icon in here, and I'm going to copy it so that way I can still have the icon on the desktop. And now Unify should start up automatically when the computer boots up. The computer should auto log in and automatically start running Unify, as well as share whatever drive we have plugged into it. So we can go ahead and close out of this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and finish the TeamViewer installation later because I have to put in all of my credentials. So the last thing for us to do right now is enable RDP, or Remote Desktop Protocol, so that we can connect to this computer locally over the network. So I'm just gonna type in remote and remote desktop settings right here, and we're going to enable it. Enable users to remotely control this computer. The last thing for us to do is set which users can remotely log in. So we're gonna add admin and OK. Now, using our admin username and password, we should be able to control this computer over RDP on our laptop or anything else that we have running at an event. And when I come home and dump all the data, I'll just be able to pull the USB drive, plug it into my computer, and have all of my files right there. So now let's get to setting up the hardware. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do with our case here is drill out all of our holes. First, I'm going to remove these stickers here. So this side of the case is going to be our air intake. We're going to have exhaust somewhere, and we need to have our ports here on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and drill some pilot holes. And with our pilot holes drilled out, we can go ahead and enlarge these holes using a paddle bit here, a 7/8 inch. And there we go, we have a connector. Okay, well, it looks like HDMI is going here. I don't wanna try and get this guy out. Ah! Oh, connector flew out and hit my eye. Okay, so I popped a blood vessel in my eye. Now we just have to find a mounting location for the third connector. All right, now for mounting the board in the case, I'm just gonna go ahead and use some industrial strength Velcro. I really like the Velcro stuff because it's easy for me to change things out later. It provides a little bit of cushion and it's adhesive, so it's not anything screwed. I don't have external screws all over the case. And it's easy to take off when I'm done. It's not permanent. Everything in Network in a Box is Velcroed in place, so I don't really have a problem with doing this because I know that it works. Okay, so I've mounted the ZimaBoard here against the back, so that way I have easier access to these connectors. I'm gonna wrap around here for power. Now, if this was more of a permanent installation, I would custom make a shorter power cable for this guy, but this is not going to be permanent, so just curling up the cable here is good enough. All right, and now everything is nicely tucked into our case. I'd like to build a platform up here so that way I can just plug in a drive and have it sit up here with a flush mount USB port somewhere around here, but for now, this should work. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a USB drive, throw it in the box, and we'll get this guy powered on. Now, one thing that I forgot to do was enable network discovery of our little ZimaBoard here. So I've gone ahead, booted this guy back up. Network discovery is turned off. Computers and network devices are not visible. Click here to change. We're gonna turn on network discovery, and we're just gonna say, yes, make it happen on all public networks. That way, any network that we connect to, it should work on. And here we have all of my other computers popping up on this list. I'm gonna go ahead and rename the computer as well. So we're gonna go into System, About, and rename this PC. And we're gonna call this Network in a Box, and next. Oh, hey, there's a Unify controller starting up. And we'll restart right now. All right, so with our little ZimaBoard rebooted, I'm going back into my main desktop here, and we're gonna go to // network in a box, / enter, and I already signed in with the credentials, but here we have drive D already shared. Now, the third goal that I had for this project was to be able to use the video output of the ZimaBoard to drive a display for some sort of event using NDI. And for that, I'm just gonna use the NDI Studio Monitor. So I'm gonna get all that set up and installed, and we'll see if it works. Okay, so now that I have the NDI Studio Monitor running here on the little ZimaBoard, I can feel it getting a bit warmer because now it's decoding some video. But the things I've done is I have installed it, set it to run at Windows Startup in full screen, disabled the overlays, and enabled the remote control. And speaking of that remote control, coming to the device's IP address, so 192.168.2.227, I have full control over the NDI Studio Monitor from a different computer on the network. So for source, I'm gonna go ahead and select Cotton Candy, and we're gonna do RTX 2060 Super 1, these are the displays on my main computer. I'm using the NDI screen capture program, and I can go ahead and interact with things. So if I go to videography or technical services, it's gonna take us to my YouTube channel, and we can see this in almost real time. NDI is super cool, and so is this little ZimaBoard. I don't think I've seen a product anywhere close to what this guy can do, especially in the form factor, price range, power consumption, being able to run an NDI monitor, sharing my USB drives, acting as a unified controller all at the same time. This thing is so cool. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and drop a like. If you really liked it and want to see more of me in your subscription feed, then you can go ahead and get subscribed. I'll have links down in the description to all the products that I used in this video, especially the ZimaBoard, the case, the connectors, all that stuff, as well as the software downloads. While you're down there, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know, is this something that you could see yourself using? Not just this project, but the ZimaBoard in general. I think it's so cool having just such an open platform for me to really do what I want with. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.